Broadcasting from Salisbury University campus, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7. Putting Delmarva first. Stay tuned for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
On May Day, there were rallies held across the country, with many of them singling out President Trump's Get Tough policy on undocumented immigrants. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. From New York to California, marchers made their displeasure known. The Washington Post found Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested some 21,000 immigrants since Trump took office. That's up about 32.6%. Deportations, though, were down slightly by 1.2% because of legal and bureaucratic issues. At the border, there's been a dramatic drop in apprehensions from more than 40,000 per month last year to just over 12,000 in March. Meanwhile, the president has said that those who come under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Program, or DACA, should rest easy. I want to take a look at the impact this is having on the community. In our studios this morning, we have Pastor Greg Knepp. He's with the St. Peter's Lutheran Church. Also, immigration specialist Layla Barrero-Krause, also with CATA, a workers' rights organization. Professor Tim Dunn, he's with the Salisbury University, and Veronica Martinez, former student actually of the professor, and comes under the DACA program. And welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Layla, I want to start with you. What is the sense that you're out there in the community working with them, trying to figure out how to deal with this changing landscape? We still don't really know exactly how it's all going to play out yet. What are you hearing from the community?
Good morning. Yes, I hear from many of our community members of the fear of being stopped by officers, ICE or police, local police. They're concerned about their children's future. They're concerned about their benefits that they get for their children will be stopped, even they are U.S. citizen. Their concerns about coming out in public or coming out to public areas and enjoy the freedom that they used to enjoy.
Go ahead.
We have been conducting outreach to several churches during the community on Sundays after the religious events and trying to bring some ease of mind to some of those community, especially because the bullying that the kids are getting subject to, and their fear to come out to grocery stores, even to their church services.
So one of the things I ran across when I was up in Georgetown earlier this week talking to some undocumented folks is that there were a number in which, for instance, they had children who were American citizens. And so we said, well, okay, what happens if you're deported? What happens to children? And they said, well, the children will just have to come with us because there's no place for them here. You find that to be the case where you have these mixed families?
Yes, it is a lot of confusion with that because the children are U.S. citizen and they're entitled to come and go as they please. And if parents choose to take them with them, they have definitely that choice. They can register with the embassies and get the dual citizenship. So when they go to their country, they have as much benefits as, they were born there. And at the age of 18, they decide to come back to the United States. They're still entitled to that. It is a lot of things that they need to do to obtain that dual citizenship. And a lot of times it takes travel to Washington, D.C. to obtain the proper documentation for the children. Mexican Embassy has been fabulous coming to the Eastern Shore to provide some of the services. They can take their kids or choose to leave them here with a family member or trust friend. A lot of times they think social services or the government is going to take those children away from them. We try to clear their mind and ease their spirit because they think those kids will be put for adoption, they will lose their children, and it's not necessarily so. I try to explain to them the only time the social services or the court system will get engaged with them is if they are mistreated or they are somehow malnutritious or they're not attending school or something like that.
Because one of the things too is I saw that there was a report that a lot of the police departments are now seeing less Hispanic women coming to report domestic violence. Less, for instance, and if there are ICE raids, for instance, particularly near schools, suddenly the attendance drops. Is that if that's general sense that you get there by the community?
Yeah, I have seen some of that, and then we have over here a very active advocate from domestic violence, and we have tried to encourage the families to stop the domestic violence, to have a more positive presence in our community.
So I want to turn to Veronica. You come under DACA. Well, let me first ask you, when you heard that that program was in place a number of years back, what was your reaction?
Oh, it was a relief. It was a very exciting moment to know that we were getting that program. But I was also realizing that it was more than anything, it wasn't the solution. It was just kind of a placeholder. And that's what also a lot of DACA students are feeling right now. They're feeling the fear that that placeholder is going to go away. I mean, he has said that should rest easy, but there's still that fear that it's going to be taken away soon. And there's fear also in that community because a lot of kids are aging in, 15 years old. They qualify to apply for DACA if they turn 15 years old, but they are, because of that fear that has been going around the country, a lot of people are not taking advantage of it, even though it's still in place. And so I don't know, I have mixed emotions really. I was really grateful for it to come about. Back in 2012, I was able to work in different places with a legal work permit. I was able to finish school, but now I'm still just being realistic and also cautious that because it may be taken away. So I'm just trying to do what I can in the meantime. I have it until 2018, and we don't know if it's going to if it's going to maintain or not.
Let me say, is it affected this atmosphere and this uncertainty? Has it affected the way you carry out your daily life? Are you more cautious? Are you?
Okay.
Because I know I've read some reports where some folks who came under the DACA nonetheless got arrested and at least are facing deportation.
Yes, it has, especially with the news that. Also, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a dreamer who was deported within hours. Within 3 hours, he was deported, even though he had DACA. And that's also a bit concerning, because we have our permits, but we don't have it with us all the time. It's not something that we should be doing. But even then, that also tells us that even if we have it, we might still be under deportation. We might still get deported. So it's a little bit of concerning, yes.
Layla, because one of the things I ran across is that you don't have to be a criminal in order to get deported. I mean, if they have traffic violations, that kind of thing. What kind of experience are you? And if you have any examples of people who face that kind of thing?
Yeah, people who are stopped because they don't have a driver's license. They have no criminal background, but they need to go to the grocery store. They need to take the families to church. They need to take it to the medical appointments. They need to take them to school. And if they don't have a driver's license, they get stopped for any little, they change a lane without turn signal, something like that. It could be a case where police can stop them. There's also where they're working and ICE can come and get them at work and they do an ICE raid. They don't have criminal records, but they're working because they're working undocumented. That is an act that the ICE will look into very hard.
So, Veronica, where do you come from, by the way? What country?
I'm from Mexico.
From Mexico. So what would it mean if you were deported to Mexico? If they said you can't stay anymore, what did it mean in terms of your own personal life? What would that mean in terms of your family? I mean, because I've talked to a number of folks who come into DACA, and that's one of the big issues that they face is that their parents might be undocumented, and it's like their whole lives will be then shifted out.
Yeah, I have been in this country for 13 years now. I am in the in-between place because I was 10 years old when I came here, and now I have been here for more than half of my life here. But my family is a very mixed status family, so I know that if I get deported, then that's probably gonna go alone. But my family, my siblings, my nieces and nephews are here. Their life is here. This is where it is. So I would be separated, personally, from the rest of my family. But I also have my mom who's in Mexico, so I would be with her. That's a good thing. I would like for her to come over here with us, but right now she cannot. But it's just, again, I don't know where my life would take me if I were deported. I know that I would have to start over once I can go to Mexico, because I have been part of this country now for 13 years. I know.
What kind of I don't want to say culture shock, but what kind? I mean, is it? I've talked to one of the DACA folks who said that who, again, like you, basically grown up here, and I think he came in, I think, when he was only like 8 months old, so he doesn't remember things at all. But that he would go back, he's visited Mexico, and that there's this gulf between his experiences in this country and their experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, do you find that to be the case? I mean, do you think that would happen? I mean, how do you think you would assimilate, I guess, for lack of a better word?
I think it would be difficult, especially since my Spanish is not as great as it used to be. But I'm also realizing that we started from the bottom when we got here, so it's possible for us also to start there. I mean, I wouldn't want to, but if that's unfortunately the case, then that's also what's going to have to happen.
By the way, do you remember how did you come across? How did you come here? Do you remember that? I mean, what was that like?
It was a difficult time to come. Yes, across the border when I was 10 years old. So it's just a memory that I try to repress sometimes.
I understand.
Because of the border patrol.
Sure. Tim, I want to turn to you. So what are the demographics in all of this? I mean, and particularly for here on the Lower Shore? I mean, there's a lot of attention being paid, certainly to Delaware, where there's I guess I assume a larger Hispanic population, but they seem to be fairly well organized, lots of organizations and so on. What does it look like in terms of those folks who are dealing with that, as opposed to what we're looking at here in the Lower Shore?
Yeah, Delaware has a longer history of kind of service provision to immigrant community and a larger kind of concentrated presence of immigrants working particularly in the poultry industry in southern Delaware and many poultry plants. And in Georgetown has been a real center where, half the town is now Hispanic, and it's almost all of that is immigrant. Much of that is Central American, most of it. And Central Americans have had better chances to apply for legal protection of some kind, to apply for political asylum. And a few cases, Hondurans and Salvadorans have been able to get temporary protected status as well, due to natural disasters in their home countries and so on. So there have been a few more legal options for people there to at least apply for, and then pending, case delays are pretty long. They can, live their lives in the meantime. And religious groups really help band together. Multiple interfaith groups came together to help provide legal assistance, language assistance, prenatal health care, kind of enrollment and nutrition programs and so on, and really develop a nice network of services there for an immigrant community that's very large relative to the local population. Here, our local, native population is much larger. Salisbury is a much larger town than any of the towns in southern Delaware, apart from, Dover and central Delaware. And The immigrant presence is more dispersed here. It's not so concentrated, but the overall numbers here are larger. But it just people kind of are don't look like it because our total population is larger here, and people live in more dispersed areas. Are not so concentrated in specific neighborhoods as much. Although there are a few, and we really haven't had any immigrant assistance center kind of pop up here. And you're looking at the immigrant community here also is more diverse. There's a lot more Haitian immigrants here, as well as various Latino immigrants, mainly Mexican, but also some Central Americans. And we have a large Korean community. We have a large number of South Asian people from India and Pakistan here. The Asian immigrants tend to come more with overwhelmingly with visas and with higher education and working in professional occupations, quite often, or in entrepreneurial activities. Often coming with college educations really makes the adjustment process much easier, but still, with challenges. And then the Latino immigrants and Haitian immigrants are more lower income. Many lack visas. Haitians have had some opportunity to get visas, but Latinos less so. And so you got that legal status obstacle there. And language barriers are larger as well for the group. And educational levels lower. So it's more challenging. And we just don't have a service provision center here. A Migrant Clinicians Network and Layla's group, Kata, and others have been working to do these outreach sessions to help prepare people in the event of deportation and family separation and so on. And really have realized the lack of services here, and we need to establish something along those lines here. The foreign-born population in the 3 lower shore counties has about doubled since 2000. It's still fairly small, between 5 and 8% in the 3 lower shore counties, but it has doubled. And in 1990, the percentages were like 1%. So it's been a slow, but or rather a fairly sizable increase, but it's still a fairly small overall. And there's a lot of adjustment issues that go along with it, and a great many mixed status households, which you've kind of been focusing on, people with visas, people with legal, with citizenship, and undocumented household members. And it creates a great deal of tension and fear in the household if one family member is undocumented.
Why do you think it is that the Lower Shore doesn't have as many services? Is it just simply because they're not concentrated, or is there an organizational issue in the sense that the Hispanic community, at least on the Lower Shore, is not as well organized as, say, for instance? Or I see Layla smiling too, so she can jump in too as well.
The Easton has established a multicultural resource center there that it really does work a lot with the immigrant community. Part of it is that the immigrant community is, again, a bit more concentrated there, more visible and obvious, and but a lot of it is funding, and we just haven't had the local kind of nonprofit organizations and religious faith-based community folks come together to put something like that together. That's the model that's been the case in many other communities across the country. It just hasn't coalesced here in the same way. So for all the factors you mentioned, but we're kind of heading in that direction as we go through this sort of crisis period here. I think it's becoming more obvious that we need to do something like that. When we did a needs assessment survey over a decade ago of Spanish-speaking immigrants on the Eastern Shore for the local library association, they wanted to be able to serve people better. Found that the biggest problems people faced were language barriers, transportation difficulties, immigration papers, work problems, and crime issues. And the biggest thing people wanted was English classes, and secondly, they wanted help with transportation, and then likewise immigration issues and papers and work help, to resolve work issues. And those are the kind of services that people need, that many other community centers around the country kind of put together something that can provide some of those.
We were smiling there a moment ago. How is the community responding to what you see as the needs of this particular community? Is it getting any easier? Are people more understanding, or are they less understanding given the atmosphere we're experiencing? What's your sense about that? I mean, are they responding, you think?
I think they have got used to the system in the area, and they stay quiet. They do not want to rock the boat. They keep quiet about employment issues, discrimination, mistreatment, because they want to continue working. So they do not want to create any more gravity to what is going on in the political arena with families being disrupted, and they are survivors. They try to do the best they can without complaining. They have to support themselves here, and many times families abroad. So their main issue is work, 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 and even if they're not being paid overtime or what they're supposed to be, and they being threat sometimes with, I'm gonna call ICE if you complain, or if you have a workers' compensation case, they are afraid to come forward because they want to continue working and earn their living. That's their main focus, to provide for their families.
Pastor Knapp, your church and you've been involved with trying to get assistance. What are you folks doing, and how did you get involved with this?
Well, I was asked by our local Lutheran bishop to coordinate an effort to mobilize congregations throughout Delaware and Maryland. Because historically the role of caring for immigrants, for foreigners, for refugees has been a very strong one within the faith community. In fact, there are over 100 verses in Scripture that specifically call us to care for the stranger and for the foreigner. And so education is a big piece of it, because as Layla has just mentioned, for many of the immigrants themselves, they are living in a culture of fear right now, and that has certainly increased during the last year or so. And so part of our role, I see, in the church community is to help people become more understanding and aware of the true issues that immigrants face in the community. And so part of the role is education. Part of the role is reaching out and providing direct assistance to families if they do indeed come under a difficult moments where someone is in danger of being deported. An issue here locally is the fact that the Worcester County Jail in Snow Hill has 170 beds that are cells that are specifically contracted for detainees. And so we are putting together a program to visit, because a lot of times family members are afraid to go and visit the folks who are detained there. And also providing transportation. We were just involved with a case 2 weeks ago from Baltimore where someone was detained. They were brought to Snow Hill. They expect the father to be deported. The son is suffering in the last stages of leukemia. And so we tried to make arrangements to bring the son essentially for his last visit to be able to say goodbye to his father before he was deported. And so to be able to help people understand that this is a real issue that touches people's hearts and lives in a political environment which has frankly become just very nasty recently.
How do you, because you're out there, and what do your members say? Are there any members that say, "Gee, I'm not sure we should be involved with this," or what's the sense that you get about the community?
Yes, our membership is a spectrum, just as you would find in society. There are some who are very, very supportive and are actively engaged and involved, and there are others who I think kind of roll their eyes and say, "Pastor, can't you just stay away from that?" But the answer is no. We have, as a denomination, and in fact, across the spectrum, the faith community is more united on this issue of serving immigrants and refugees than almost any other political issue that one might encounter, because Scripture is so replete with these very specific directives to assist our neighbor, to assist the foreigner, and we're not given the option of asking where they come from. That's not that's not part of the option. We are called as people of faith to reach out and to help, and so that's the message that we kind of keep bringing.
In terms of the political establishment, because this is a very conservative area. I mean,
Yes.
in fact, I think there's only one. Well, it's a couple of. Well, I guess like a couple of Democrats left in the state legislature from here.
Right.
And, what is the political? How does that political atmosphere reach you? I mean, what kind of reaction do you get from it? Because they have to attend to the feelings of their constituents, and many of whom, conservative and say take, well, no, some I'm sure would say deport them all. Others would say they broke the law, for example. If
Right.
nothing else, they take a much less sympathetic line to it. What kind of relationship do you find there?
Well, you're absolutely right. This is, and again, that's where, fortunately for us, when the faith community approaches an issue from a moral basis, trying to implement policies and advocate for policies that are more positive for immigrants and refugees. It's a difficult one, but on the other hand, political leaders often want to show that they are in fact people of faith themselves. That's how many of them got elected, and so in a way it becomes an opportunity, one might say, to challenge those leaders that if you're going to take a moral stand on issue X over here, well, here's what your denomination, your faith community says about immigrants and refugees. We expect you to also act in a way that drives your faith on this issue as well.
Do you find many of them respond to that?
There are some who do, and but then there are others, as you might imagine, who are able to then use another line of argument and say, well, most of my constituents say this, and so part of what we really have to do is let people know that there are so many misperceptions that are being spread, so many downright lies that are being offered right now, coming out of the White House and other places, and we need to constantly combat that with real stories and true facts about the immigrant community and how much they contribute. How much they contribute economically and socially to our environment.
Well, we've been speaking with Pastor Greg Knepp. He's with the St. Peter's Lutheran Church, also immigration specialist. Layla Barrero-Kraus also works with CATA, a workers' rights organization. Professor Tim Dunn here at Salisbury University, as well as Veronica Martinez, a former student of the professor, also comes on the DACA program, and we wish you by the way, Veronica, all the best.
Yes.
And appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for watching Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Production and audio engineering by Chris Frank. Hosted by Don Rush. For podcasts, visit delmarvapublicradio.net or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast on iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on PAC 14. For the Delmarva Today schedule, visit pac14.org or view the latest issue of the Daily Times.